Sometimes the people who should stand by you are the first ones to walk away. Derek Mitchell grabbed his pregnant sister by the arm and shoved her backward so hard she nearly fell. His face had turned purple with rage veins bulging in his neck as he screamed at her in front of 15 family members gathered in the church basement. "You conniving little thief! You waited until he was dying, until he could barely remember his own name, and you poisoned him against his own blood. You made him believe we abandoned him when you were the one sneaking around behind our backs." His wife tried to pull him away, but he shook her off and stepped closer to Elena, close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. "I swear to God, if you think you are walking out of here with that inheritance, you have lost your mind. I will destroy you. I will take everything you have left. And when I am done, you will be begging on the streets with that bastard child of yours." Before we continue with this story, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your city in the comments right now. I want to see how far this story reaches. And if you want to discover what secret was buried in that old mansion for 70 years, you need to subscribe and watch until the very end. What Elena finds in that house will change everything you think you know about family sacrifice and the lies we tell to protect ourselves. Elena stumbled backward, her hand instinctively wrapping around her pregnant belly. 7 months along, and she could feel her baby kicking in distress, responding to the adrenaline flooding her system. The fluorescent lights of the church basement hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the faces of relatives who watched the confrontation with varying degrees of shock and satisfaction. "Derek, please." Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "You are scaring me." "Good. You should be scared." Derek jabbed a finger at her face. "You should be terrified of what I am going to do to you." The lawyer who had read the will stood up from his folding chair, his face pale. "Mr. Mitchell, I must insist that you calm down. This is a church. We have just buried your grandfather. Stay out of this." Derek did not even look at him. "This is family business." Vanessa stepped up beside her brother, her designer heels clicking on the linoleum floor. She was 42, immaculately dressed, her hair perfect and her makeup flawless, even at a funeral. Her eyes were ice cold as she looked at Elena. "You know what I find interesting?" Vanessa's voice was silk wrapped around a blade. "You have barely spoken to grandfather in years. You did not visit him in the nursing home. You did not call on his birthdays. You did not send Christmas cards. And suddenly, 6 months before he dies, he changes his will to leave you everything. Everything, Elena. The house, the land, 45 acres, every single thing inside that mansion. And you expect us to believe you had nothing to do with it? I did not know he was even sick." Elena's voice cracked. "Nobody told me. I found out about the funeral 3 days ago from a Facebook post." "Oh, how convenient." Derek laughed bitterly. "The victim act. Poor Elena, always left out, always the last to know. Nobody tells her anything because she is too busy being a martyr to pay attention to her own family." "That is not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair?" Derek stepped closer again, forcing Elena to back up until she hit the wall. "I have been managing grandfather's affairs for 15 years. I visited him every month. I made sure he had the best care money could buy. I handled his finances, his medical decisions, his legal matters. And what do I get? A watch. A watch that is probably worth less than the suit I am wearing. While, you, the family disappointment, the one who could not keep a husband, the one who got herself knocked up at 34, like a teenager, you get the entire estate." Elena felt tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not give him that satisfaction. "I did not ask for this. No, you just manipulated a dying old man into giving it to you." Derek's voice dropped to a menacing whisper. "But here's the thing, little sister, you made a mistake. You underestimated how far I will go to protect what is mine. That property should have been divided among all of us. It should have gone into the family trust that I manage. And one way or another, that is exactly what is going to happen. Are you threatening me? I am making you a promise." The lawyer stepped forward again, more forcefully this time. "I need to remind everyone that the will was properly executed with full legal oversight. Mr. William Mitchell was certified mentally competent by 2 independent physicians. Any attempt to contest this will would face significant legal obstacles." Derek turned on him with a snarl. "And you would know all about that, would you not? How much did she pay you? What did she promise you to falsify those documents? Mr. Mitchell, I am warning you that those accusations are defamatory and actionable." Elena took advantage of the distraction to slip sideways along the wall, moving toward the door. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. She needed to get out of here. She needed air. She needed to find Sophie and get as far away from this nightmare as possible. "Where do you think you are going?" Derek's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, yanking her back. The grip was hard enough to bruise. "Let go of me." Elena tried to pull free, but his fingers only tightened. "We are not done here. Yes, we are. Let go of me right now or I will scream. Go ahead. Who do you think anyone here is going to believe, the successful businessman who took care of his grandfather for years, or the pregnant divorcee who showed up out of nowhere to steal the inheritance? Elena looked around the room at the faces of her relatives. Her Aunt Patricia sat in the corner, lips pressed thin with disapproval. Her Uncle Robert had his arms crossed and was shaking his head slowly. Two cousins she barely recognized were whispering to each other and shooting hostile glances in her direction. Not a single person moved to help her. Not one. She is right, Derek. A new voice cut through the tension. You need to let her go. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Marcus Elena's ex-husband standing in the doorway of the basement. He was wearing an expensive suit and that charming smile that had made Elena fall for him 8 years ago. The same smile that had hidden the coward underneath. Derek released Elena's wrist with a contemptuous shove. What are you doing here? You are not family anymore. Sophie asked me to come. Marcus walked into the room with easy confidence. She was upset after the funeral and needed someone to pick her up. I thought I would see what all the commotion was about. Elena's blood ran cold. Sophie, her 16-year-old daughter. Where is she in my car? She did not want to be here for this. Marcus's smile never wavered. Cannot blame her, really. Family drama is so exhausting. I want to see her. She does not want to see you right now. Marcus shrugged. You know how teenagers are. Give her some space. She is my daughter, and she is old enough to make her own choices about who she wants to spend time with. Elena felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. First her grandfather's mysterious inheritance, then her brother's violent threats. Now her own daughter choosing her deadbeat father over her. What is happening? I will tell you what is happening. Derek stepped forward, positioning himself beside Marcus in a display of male solidarity. The truth is finally coming out. You have spent your whole life playing the victim, making yourself look good by making everyone else look bad. And now it is catching up with you. I have never done that. Really? Vanessa joined the group, completing the wall of hostility facing Elena. What about when you told Mom and Dad that I was the one who broke the antique vase when you were the one who knocked it over? I was 8 years old. And you did break it. I saw you, liar. Vanessa's composure cracked for just a moment, revealing raw hatred underneath. You have always been a liar, a manipulator, a snake in the grass. And now you have pulled off the biggest con of your life, stealing our inheritance right out from under us. I did not steal anything. Then prove it. Derek crossed his arms. Give it back. Sign the property over to the family trust, and we will forget this ever happened. Elena stared at her brother. The brother who used to push her on the swings when they were children. The brother who had taught her to ride a bike. The brother who had once promised to always protect her. When had he become this person? I am not going to sign away something that was left to me, she said quietly. Grandfather William chose to leave me that property for a reason. Until I understand what that reason is, I am not giving it up. Then you have made your choice. Derek's voice went flat and cold. As of this moment, you are no longer part of this family. I will be filing legal challenges first thing Monday morning. I will contest the will on grounds of undue influence and mental incompetency. I will hire investigators to dig into every aspect of your pathetic little life, and I will make sure that by the time this is over, you do not have 2 pennies to rub together. Derek, please. Get out. He pointed toward the door. Get out of this church. Get out of our lives. And enjoy that rotting old mansion while you can, because you will not have it for long. Elena looked around the room one last time. 15 family members, and not one of them would meet her eyes. She turned and walked out of the basement, up the stairs, and into the church parking lot. The spring air was cold, and she wrapped her arms around herself, shivering despite her coat. Marcus's silver BMW was parked near the entrance. Sophie was sitting in the passenger seat, staring at her phone. Elena walked over and tapped on the window. Sophie looked up. Her expression was completely blank for a moment, and then something hardened in her eyes. Something that looked terrifyingly like her father. She rolled down the window. What? Come with me, please. I need you to come home with me. Sophie laughed. A short, bitter sound that did not belong to a 16-year-old. Home, to that tiny apartment where I have to share a bathroom with you and listen to you cry yourself to sleep every night. No thanks. Sophie, I know you are angry about the divorce. I know things have been hard, but I am still your mother. Yeah, and what a great job you have done with that. Sophie's voice dripped with contempt. Dad told me what happened in there. He told me how you manipulated great-grandpa into cutting everyone else out of the will. That is not what happened. Then what did happen, Mom? Explain it to me, because from where I am sitting, it looks like you just destroyed our entire family for a house you do not even want. I do not know why he left it to me. Elena felt tears threatening again. That is the truth. I have not seen him in years. I did not even know he was sick." Sophie shook her head slowly. "You know what your problem is, Mom. You never take responsibility for anything. It is always someone else's fault. Dad left because he could not handle another kid. Tyler went to college to get away from you. The family hates you because they are jealous. Nothing is ever because of something you did. That is not true. It is completely true. And I am tired of it. I am tired of being your emotional support animal. I am tired of pretending everything is fine when it is not. I am tired of you." The words hit Elena like physical blows. She reached out to touch her daughter's face, but Sophie pulled back. "Do not touch me. Sophie, please. I am going to stay with Dad for a while. He actually has room for me. He actually wants me around. And what about the baby, your little brother or sister?" Sophie's lip curled. "That is your problem, not mine. You are the one who decided to keep it. You are the one who drove Dad away. You figure it out." The window rolled up. Elena stood there frozen, watching her daughter look away and return to her phone. A moment later, Marcus emerged from the church and walked toward the car. He saw Elena standing there, and his smile widened. "Tough day, huh? What did you tell her?" Marcus shrugged. "The truth, that you have always been manipulative, that you drove me away with your neediness, that the best thing she can do is distance herself from you before you drag her down, too." "How dare you? How dare I?" Marcus laughed. "You are the one who got pregnant on purpose to try to trap me in a marriage I did not want. You are the one who refused to consider alternatives when I told you I was not ready for another kid. You made your choices, Elena. Now you get to live with the consequences. I did not get pregnant on purpose. It was an accident. Sure it was." He opened the car door. "I will have Sophie call you in a few days. Maybe by then you will have come to your senses and signed that property over to your brother. He's going to get it eventually anyway. Might as well save yourself the legal fees." He got in the car and started the engine. Elena watched them drive away, her daughter never once looking back. She stood in the parking lot for a long time. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful, she thought. Cruel that the world could be so beautiful when everything inside her was falling apart. Her phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "I meant what I said. You are dead to us. Enjoy your 30 pieces of silver." She deleted it without responding. Another buzz. A text from Vanessa. "You have broken Mom and Dad's hearts. They are rolling in their graves right now. I hope you are proud of yourself." Delete. Another buzz. A number she did not recognize. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Harold Grant, attorney for Derek and Vanessa Mitchell. Please be advised that we will be filing a legal challenge to the will of William Mitchell on Monday morning. We recommend you secure your own legal representation immediately." Elena turned off her phone and got into her car. Her old Honda with over 100,000 miles on it, the check engine light perpetually glowing the heater that only worked sometimes. She sat there for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. Her family had just disowned her. Her daughter had chosen her lying, manipulative ex-husband over her. Her siblings were going to drag her through the courts until she had nothing left. And somewhere in Vermont, a crumbling old mansion sat waiting for her. A mansion full of secrets that her grandfather had wanted her to find. She thought about the lawyer's words at the will reading. There is a letter as well. The envelope was still in her purse. She had not opened it yet. Had been too overwhelmed by Derek's attack to even think about it. She pulled it out now. Cream-colored paper, heavy and expensive. Her name written on the front, in shaky but deliberate handwriting. Elena. Just her name. Nothing else. She opened it carefully and pulled out 3 pages. "My dearest Elena, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you have just learned that I have left you everything I had left to give. I imagine your siblings are furious. I imagine you are confused. I imagine you are wondering why an old man you barely knew would do such a thing. The answer is simple, but the truth behind it is not. I chose you because you are the only one who might understand. You are the only one who might care about what really matters more than money or status or family reputation. I have secrets, Elena. Secrets I have carried for over 70 years. Secrets that your father knew and was ashamed of. Secrets that Derek and Vanessa do not know because their father refused to tell them. Those secrets are buried in my house. Hidden in places where only someone who cares enough to look will find them. I watched you grow up from a distance, Elena. I saw how your parents treated you always second to your siblings, always the afterthought, always the one who did not quite fit. I saw how you chose to spend your life helping others instead of enriching yourself. I saw how you chose love over money when you married Marcus, and I saw how you chose your baby over your marriage when he asked you to give up your child. You have courage, Elena, More courage than anyone else in this family has shown in 3 generations. I am asking you to use that courage now. Go to the house. Find what I have hidden there. Learn the truth about what I did and why I did it. And when you understand, decide for yourself what to do with that knowledge. Your siblings will fight you. The family will turn against you. You may lose everything before this is over, but I believe you are strong enough to bear it. I believe you are the one who can finally bring our family's secrets into the light. I'm sorry I could not tell you this in person. I am sorry I was not a better grandfather to you. I am sorry for so many things, but I am not sorry I chose you. With all my love, Grandfather William. Elena read the letter 3 times. By the 3rd reading, she was crying openly, tears streaming down her face and dripping onto her pregnant belly. Her grandfather had seen her. Really seen her when everyone else in her life seemed to look right through her. He had chosen her not because she was special or successful or worthy. He had chosen her because she was the only one who might care about truth more than inheritance. She wiped her face and started the car. 3 hours later, she turned off a rural highway onto a gravel road that wound through dense forest. The sun had set and the darkness was nearly complete, broken only by her headlights cutting through the trees. Her GPS had stopped working 20 minutes ago, but the directions in her grandfather's envelope were clear. Past the old mill. Left at the stone wall. Straight until you see the iron gates. And then she saw it. The gates were rusted open, hanging at odd angles like broken teeth. Beyond them, a long driveway disappeared into the darkness. Elena drove slowly, her car bouncing over potholes and fallen branches. The forest pressed in on both sides, branches scraping against her windows like fingers trying to get in. And then the trees opened up and the mansion rose before her, 3 stories of gray stone covered in climbing ivy, pointed arches and steep gables, broken windows that stared out at her like empty eyes, a wide front porch with columns that had cracked and begun to lean. It looked like something out of a horror movie, something that should have been torn down decades ago. This was her inheritance. Elena stopped the car and sat there, engine running and staring at the house. What had her grandfather been thinking? This place was worthless. It would cost more to repair than it could ever be worth. Derek could have it. He could have all of it. She would sign the papers tomorrow and walk away from this nightmare. But even as she thought it, she knew she would not do it. Her grandfather had asked her to find the truth, had trusted her with secrets he had kept for 70 years. She owed him that much, at least. Elena turned off the engine and got out of the car. The night air was cold and damp, filled with the smell of rotting leaves and old wood. An owl hooted somewhere in the darkness. The house loomed above her, massive and silent. She walked up the front steps, testing each one before putting her weight on it. The porch boards creaked ominously but held. The front door was heavy oak carved with intricate patterns worn smooth by decades of weather. The key from the lawyer's envelope fit the lock, but it took several tries before it would turn. The door swung open with a groan that echoed through the empty house. Elena stepped inside. The smell hit her immediately. Dust and mildew and decay. The smell of a place that had been abandoned and forgotten. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a grand entry hall with a sweeping staircase. Wallpaper hung in peeling strips from the walls. Furniture sat draped in sheets stained with years of accumulated grime. "Hello?" her voice echoed through the empty rooms. "Is anyone here?" Silence. She walked slowly through the ground floor, her footsteps loud on the warped hardwood. A parlor with a massive fireplace, its mantel carved with designs she could barely make out under layers of dust. A dining room with a long table surrounded by chairs, most of them broken. A kitchen with appliances that belonged in a museum. Everything was covered in dust and cobwebs. No one had lived here in decades. She climbed the stairs carefully, one hand on the railing, the other holding her phone. The baby kicked and she paused, rubbing her belly soothingly. "It is okay, little one. We are just exploring." The second-floor hallway stretched in both directions, lined with closed doors. She opened them one by one, finding empty bedrooms, a bathroom with ancient fixtures, closets filled with rotting fabric. And then, at the end of the hall, she found the study. It was different from the other rooms, more personal. A large desk faced the window. Bookshelves lined 2 walls, still filled with volumes. A leather chair sat behind the desk, cracked and faded, but still intact. Elena walked slowly into the room, feeling like she was intruding on sacred space. This was where her grandfather had spent his time. This was where he had kept his secrets. She sat down in the leather chair, and something shifted inside her. Not the baby, something emotional, a sense of connection to a man she had barely known. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. Derek again. "I know you're at the house. I have people watching. Enjoy your night in that dump. Monday morning, the real fight begins." She turned off her phone and set it on the desk. In the silence that followed she heard something. a faint sound barely audible, like paper rustling. She stood up and walked slowly around the room listening. The sound seemed to come from the bookshelf to her left. She ran her hands along the shelves, feeling the leather spines of old books, the accumulated dust of years. And then her fingers found something different, a slight gap where there should not be one. She pressed, and the entire section of shelf swung inward on hidden hinges. Elena's heart stopped. Behind the bookshelf was a hidden compartment carved into the wall, and inside that compartment was a bundle of papers tied with string. She pulled them out with trembling hands. The string crumbled at her touch, so old it had nearly disintegrated. She carried the papers to the desk and spread them out in the beam of her phone's flashlight. Letters. Dozens of them. Written on different types of paper in different hands. Some formal, some desperate, some barely legible. She picked up the first one and began to read. October 12, 1932. Dear Mr. Mitchell, I cannot find words to thank you for what you have done. When I arrived at your door 3 months ago, I had nothing. My gallery had closed. My paintings would not sell. I'd been sleeping in doorways and eating from garbage cans. You took me in without question. You gave me a room, food supplies to continue my work. You never asked for anything in return. Tomorrow I leave for Philadelphia, where a gallery has agreed to show my paintings. This would not have been possible without your kindness. I will never forget what you did for me. With eternal gratitude, F.K. Elena set down the letter and picked up another. November 3rd, 1933. Mr. Mitchell, my family and I stayed in your home for 6 weeks while I recovered from the accident that cost me my job. You fed my children when I could not. You gave my wife hope when I had none left to give. We are leaving now for my brother's farm in Iowa. The children cried this morning because they did not want to go. They said your house felt like home. May God bless you for what you do. J.R. letter after letter told the same story. Artists who had lost everything, families torn apart by the Depression, workers blacklisted for union activity, professors fired for their political views, all of them thanking her grandfather for taking them in, for providing sanctuary when they had nowhere else to go. Elena sat back in the chair, overwhelmed. Her grandfather had run a refuge during the Great Depression. He had opened his home to desperate people and helped them get back on their feet. For years, it seemed. Maybe decades. Why had no one told her this? Why had the family buried this history? She stood up and began searching the study more carefully. If there was one hiding place, there might be more. She found the second compartment behind a loose panel in the wall. Inside was a leather-bound ledger with dates written on the spine. 1931, 1942. She opened it to the first page and found a detailed record. Names, arrival dates, departure dates, occupations, and notes. Harold Finch, painter. Arrived October 3rd, 1931. Departed January 15th, 1932. Completed series of landscapes. Secured gallery show in Boston. Margaret Foster and children ages 6, 9, 12. Arrived December 1st, 1932. Departed March 3rd, 1933. Husband killed in factory accident. Arranged position as housekeeper in Hartford. Victor Laurent, composer. Arrived March 15th, 1933. Departed August 20th, 1933. Fled political persecution. Completed symphony. Secured position with orchestra in New York. Page after page of names. Hundreds of them over more than a decade. Her grandfather had helped hundreds of people. Had spent what must have been a fortune feeding and housing and supporting them. And the family had erased all of it. Elena pulled out her phone and took pictures of every page. Whatever happened, whatever Derek tried to do, she was going to preserve this record. It was after midnight when she finally stopped. Her back ached, her eyes burned, and the baby was kicking constantly, protesting the late hour and her mother's tension. She found a bedroom on the second floor that seemed relatively clean. The bed had no sheets, but the mattress was dry. She wrapped herself in her coat and lay down exhausted. Tomorrow she would continue searching. Tomorrow she would find more answers. But as she drifted off to sleep, one question kept circling in her mind. If her grandfather had been doing something so good, so noble, why had the family wanted it hidden? What were they really afraid of? Elena woke to gray light filtering through dirty windows and the sound of tires on gravel. She sat up quickly, her heart pounding. Someone was here. She moved to the window and looked down at the driveway. A silver BMW was pulling up to the house. Derek's car. Elena's blood went cold. How had he found her so quickly? He said he had people watching, but she had not seen anyone on the road last night. She watched as Derek got out of the car, followed by Vanessa and a man she did not recognize. Tall, gray-haired, carrying a briefcase. Their lawyer, probably. She took a deep breath and walked downstairs to meet them. Derek was already pounding on the front door when she opened it. He stepped back, surprised to find her standing there. Then his face hardened. "So you are still here. I thought maybe you would have come to your senses overnight." "I am not going anywhere, Derek." He pushed past her into the entry hall, looking around with disgust. "What a dump. This place should have been condemned years ago. I cannot believe you actually slept here. It is not that bad once you get used to it." Vanessa followed her brother inside, picking her way carefully across the warped floorboards. Her heels were totally impractical for this environment, but Elena suspected her sister had worn them deliberately. A power move. "We are not here to discuss the accommodations." Vanessa's voice was crisp and professional. "We are here to make you a final offer. I already told you I am not signing anything. Hear us out." The gray-haired man stepped forward. "I am Harold Grant, attorney for the Mitchell Family Trust. Your siblings have authorized me to offer you a settlement, $200,000 in exchange for signing over all rights to this property." Elena stared at him. "Yesterday, Derek threatened to destroy me. Now you are offering me money. Yesterday, we were all emotional." Derek's tone was almost reasonable now. It was a funeral. Tempers were high. But we have had time to think it over, and we have decided that a legal battle would be expensive and time-consuming for everyone. This offer is more than fair, Elena. Take it. $200,000. More money than Elena had ever had at one time in her life. Enough to pay off her debt, set up a college fund for Sophie, prepare for the new baby, and all she had to do was walk away from her grandfather's secrets. "Why is this house so important to you?" Derek's reasonable mask slipped for just a moment. "It is not about the house. It is about the principle. Grandfather should have divided his estate equally among all his grandchildren. That is how families work." "Is it because I found something interesting last night?" Elena watched their faces carefully. "Letters, hundreds of them, from people grandfather helped during the Depression." Derek went still. "What kind of letters?" "Thank you letters. From artists, families, workers who had nowhere else to go. Grandfather turned this house into a sanctuary. He took in people who were desperate and helped them get back on their feet. That is ancient history." Vanessa's voice was dismissive, but her eyes had gone hard. "It has nothing to do with the current situation." "I think it does. I think there is something in this house that you do not want anyone to find. Something you are scared of. You are being paranoid." "Am I? Then why are you so eager to get me out of here? This place is falling apart. The land is probably not worth much. Why would you pay $200,000 for a liability?" Derek and Vanessa exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some silent communication that Elena could not read. "Fine." Derek's voice went flat. "You want to play detective? Go ahead. Waste your time digging through old papers, but do not say I did not warn you. Whatever you find in this house, you are not going to like it." "What does that mean?" "It means grandfather was not the saint you want him to be. He did things, Elena, things the family has spent decades trying to forget. If you start digging all that up, you are not just going to hurt us. You are going to destroy his memory." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "What things? Ask him yourself." Derek gestured at the house around them. "You have his letters. You have his records. See how you feel about your precious grandfather when you learn the truth about who he really was." He turned and walked out without another word. Vanessa followed her heels, clicking sharply on the floor. The lawyer paused at the door. "The offer stands for 72 hours, Mrs. Mitchell. After that, we proceed with litigation. You should know that your siblings are prepared to spend whatever it takes to recover this property. You do not have those kinds of resources." He handed her a business card and left. Elena stood in the empty entry hall listening to their cars drive away. What had Derek meant? What had her grandfather done that was so terrible the family had buried it for decades? She looked at the stairs leading up to the study, to the hidden compartments she had found last night. There was more here. She was certain of it now. She went back to work. By late afternoon, Elena had searched every room on the second floor. She found 3 more hidden compartments, each containing more documents, more letters, more evidence of her grandfather's sanctuary. But she also found something else. A journal. Leather-bound, small enough to fit in a coat pocket, hidden in a false bottom in a dresser drawer. She carried it to the study and sat down in her grandfather's chair to read. January 1st, 1933. I begin this journal as a record of necessary work. The world outside these walls grows darker each day. Men who want work cannot find it. Families go hungry while grain rots in silos. Something fundamental has broken in our society. I cannot stand by and do nothing. January 15th, 1933. 3 guests currently in residence. Harold continues his paintings in the North Studio. The Kowalski family is settling in. The children are thin but beginning to smile. This house was built to hold a large family. Now it holds strangers who have become something like family. Perhaps this is what it was always meant for. March 3rd, 1933. My son visited today. He disapproves of what I am doing. He calls it harboring radicals and wasting the family fortune. We argued. He left angry. I suspect he will not return for a long time. This grieves me, but I cannot stop doing what I know to be right simply to appease those who refuse to see the suffering around them. Elena paused. Her father. Her grandfather was writing about her father. She read on. June 8, 1933. The work grows more difficult. Food costs rise. The heating system needs repairs. My accounts are not inexhaustible, but how can I turn away those who come seeking help? Each person who arrives does so because they have nowhere else to go. I am not a rich man trying to buy virtue. I am simply someone with resources trying to help those who have none. October 10th, 1933. Victor completed his symphony today. He played portions of it for all of us on the drawing room piano. It was beautiful. He wept while playing the final movement. He told me later that he had believed he would never compose again, that his music had died with his hope. This house gave him back his art. I cannot imagine a better use for these walls. The entries continued for years. Elena read about the people who came and went, about the struggles to keep the sanctuary running, about the slow estrangement from her grandfather's own family. And then she reached 1939, and everything changed. September 1st, 1939. War has come to Europe. Hitler's armies have invaded Poland. God help us all. September 15th, 1939. I received a letter today from an old friend in New York. He is part of a network helping people escape from Germany. Jewish families, political dissidents, anyone targeted by the Nazi regime. He asked if I would be willing to help. I did not hesitate to say yes. October 3rd, 1939. The first family arrived last night. A husband and wife, 2 young daughters. They fled from Vienna. The father was a university professor, Jewish. He lost his position when the Nazis took over Austria. They have nothing except the clothes they wore. The mother keeps touching the walls as if she cannot believe they are solid, as if she expects to wake up and find herself back in the nightmare they escaped. The older daughter, who was perhaps 8 years old, asked me why the bad men wanted to hurt them. I had no answer. Elena's hands were trembling. She turned the page. November 12, 1939. 3 families currently in residence. All refugees from Europe. All Jewish. The work is different now, more dangerous. I'm not just feeding hungry artists, I am hiding people from a regime that wants them dead. My contact in New York has explained the network to me. Safe houses across the country. People willing to shelter refugees until papers can be arranged, until they can find jobs and homes of their own. I am one link in a chain that stretches from the ports of New York to the heartland of America. I have never felt more frightened or more certain that I am doing the right thing. January 3rd, 1940. My son came to the house today, unannounced. He saw the Goldstein family in the garden. He was furious. He called them dangerous foreigners. He said I was putting the family at risk by harboring potential enemies. I told him they were fleeing murderers, that they had lost everything because of who they were born. He said I was being naive, that there were proper channels for immigrants, that if they could not come to America legally, there must be a reason. I told him to leave my house and not return. He is my son. I love him, but I cannot let him endanger the people under my protection. Elena set down the journal. Tears were streaming down her face. Her grandfather had not just run a Depression-era sanctuary. He had been part of an underground railroad for Jewish refugees fleeing the Holocaust. And her father had tried to stop him. She understood now. She understood Derek's fear. She understood why the family had buried this history. It was not because her grandfather had done something shameful. It was because their father had. Her phone buzzed. She had turned it back on to take pictures of the documents. It was a number she did not recognize. She answered anyway. Mrs. Mitchell. The voice was elderly female with a faint accent Elena could not place. My name is Ruth Adler. I am calling from Florida. I believe your grandfather saved my family's life. Elena's breath caught in her throat. What I saw the notice about William Mitchell's passing. I have been searching for information about him for years, for decades. When I found your contact information listed as his heir, I knew I had to call, Mrs. Adler. I just found his journal. I just read about the refugees. Then you know. The old woman's voice was thick with emotion. My family arrived at your grandfather's house in October 1938. I was 6 years old. We had fled from Vienna. Elena closed her eyes. The family in the journal. The professor and his wife and 2 daughters. My father was a mathematics professor. Jewish. When the Nazis came, he lost everything. We escaped with nothing but the clothes we wore. Elena could barely speak. What happened to you after you left the house? We stayed 4 months while your grandfather helped my father find a teaching position. He paid for our train tickets. He bought us winter coats. On Christmas, even though we were Jewish, he gave my sister and me presents. Ruth's voice broke. I have 5 grandchildren, Mrs. Mitchell. 5 grandchildren who exist because your grandfather helped us when we had nowhere else to turn. Every night for 70 years I have prayed for that kind man who saved us. Elena was crying openly now. I did not know. I did not know any of this. My family never told me. They would not want you to know. Ruth's voice hardened slightly. Your grandfather's son, your father, he was not a good man. He came to the house once while we were there. He looked at us like we were insects, like we were something dirty that had crawled into his home. I am so sorry. Do not apologize for him. Ruth's voice softened. You are not responsible for your father's hatred. But I need to ask you something, Mrs. Mitchell. What are you going to do with your grandfather's house? Elena looked around the study at the journals and letters spread across every surface. I am going to tell the truth. I am going to make sure everyone knows what he did. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Ruth Adler began to weep. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. They talked for another hour. Ruth told Elena stories about her time at the house, about the other refugees who had passed through, about the network of ordinary Americans who had risked everything to save strangers. When Elena finally hung up, she felt something fundamental had shifted inside her. She was not just fighting for an inheritance anymore. She was fighting for truth, for justice, for the memory of a man who had sacrificed everything to help people in need, and she was going to win. Her phone buzzed again, a text from Sophie. Mom, I need to talk to you. Can you call me? Elena's heart lurched. She called immediately. Sophie answered on the first ring. Mom, her daughter's voice was small and scared. I am sorry. I am so sorry for what I said. Honey, what is wrong? What happened, Dad? He is not who I thought he was. Sophie was crying now. He has been lying to me. About you, about everything. I found out he has been seeing someone else for months. He brought her to the house while I was there. He told me I had to be nice to her or I could not stay. Oh, sweetheart. And then I heard him on the phone with Uncle Derek. They were talking about you about the house. Dad said he was going to try to get information out of me about what you were doing. He said he would share whatever I told him, and then Derek would pay him. Elena closed her eyes. Of course. Of course Marcus was working with Derek, 2 predators recognizing each other. I want to come home, Mom. Please, can you come get me? I am in Vermont right now, at the house I inherited, but I will leave first thing tomorrow morning. I am sorry. I am so sorry for choosing him over you. It is okay, baby. It is okay. You did not know. I love you, Mom. I love you too. So much. I will be there tomorrow, I promise. She hung up and sat in the darkness of the study, her hand on her belly where the baby was kicking. Her family was trying to destroy her. Her ex-husband was conspiring against her. Her own brother had turned her daughter into a spy, but she was not alone anymore. She had Ruth Adler and the other descendants of people her grandfather had saved. She had her daughter finally coming back to her. She had the truth, and tomorrow she was going to start fighting back. Elena drove through the night, her headlights cutting through the darkness as she pushed her old Honda as fast as it would go. The 3-hour drive from Vermont felt like an eternity. Every minute that passed was another minute her daughter was trapped in that house with Marcus and his new girlfriend. She arrived at Marcus's apartment complex at 6 in the morning. The sky was just beginning to lighten, painting everything in shades of gray and pink. She parked in front of his building and texted Sophie, I am here. Come down. 3 minutes later, Sophie emerged from the front entrance carrying a backpack and a small suitcase. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. Her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Elena got out of the car and Sophie ran to her, throwing her arms around her mother and sobbing into her shoulder. I am so sorry, Mom. I am so sorry. It is okay, baby. I am here now. Everything is going to be okay. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other in the early morning light. Elena felt something broken inside her begin to mend. Her daughter was back. Whatever else happened, she had her daughter back. A voice called out from above them. Sophie, get back up here right now. Elena looked up. Marcus was leaning out of his 3rd-floor window, wearing a bathrobe, his face twisted with anger. She is coming with me, Marcus. Like hell she is. Sophie, I said get up here. Sophie pulled back from her mother and looked up at her father. No, excuse me, I said no. I know what you have been doing. I know you have been lying to me about Mom. I know you have been working with Uncle Derek. I am done. Marcus's face went red. You do not know anything. You are a child. You do not understand adult situations. I understand enough. I understand that you brought your girlfriend here while I was staying with you. I understand that you were using me to spy on Mom. I understand that you never cared about me at all. You just wanted to hurt her. Get up here right now, or I swear to God I will come down there. Elena stepped forward, positioning herself between Sophie and the building. Go ahead, Marcus. Come down here. I would love to have a conversation about parental alienation and conspiracy to commit fraud. You do not scare me, Elena. I should. Because I found out what Grandfather William was really doing in that house. I found the records, the letters, the names of every person he helped. And I found out what your friend Derek is so afraid of me discovering. Marcus's expression flickered. Elena caught it. Fear. The same fear she had seen in Derek's eyes. You do not know anything. I know enough, and soon everyone else will know too. She turned to Sophie. Get in the car, honey. Sophie climbed into the passenger seat. Elena walked around to the driver's side, keeping her eyes on Marcus the whole time. This is not over, Marcus shouted. Elena got in the car and started the engine. She looked up at him one last time. Yes, it is. She drove away without looking back. They stopped at a diner outside of Hartford for breakfast. Sophie was quiet at first, picking at her pancakes and avoiding her mother's eyes. Elena let her be. She knew her daughter needed time to process everything that had happened. Finally, Sophie spoke. What did you find at the house? Elena took a deep breath. Your great-great-grandfather was a hero, Sophie. During the Great Depression, he turned that mansion into a sanctuary for people who had nowhere else to go. Artists, families, workers who had lost everything. He took them in, fed them, helped them get back on their feet. Sophie looked up. Really, really? And that is not even the most important part. When World War II started, he became part of an underground network, helping Jewish refugees escape from Nazi Germany. He hid families in that house. He helped them get papers, find jobs, start new lives. Sophie's eyes went wide. That is incredible. Why did nobody ever tell us about this? Because your grandfather, my father, he did not approve. He thought it was dangerous. He thought the refugees were a threat. He tried to stop Grandfather William. Sophie was silent for a moment. So Dad's family has been hiding this for decades because they are ashamed of what Great-Grandpa did. No, they are ashamed of what their father did. What my father did. He tried to turn those families away. He called them dangerous foreigners. He was on the wrong side of history, Sophie. And Derek knows that if the truth comes out, it will destroy the family reputation he has spent his whole life building. Sophie set down her fork. That is why Uncle Derek wants the house so badly. He wants to bury the evidence. Exactly. What are you going to do? Elena reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. I am going to tell the truth. All of it. I am going to make sure everyone knows what Grandfather William did and why it mattered. Sophie squeezed her mother's hand. I want to help. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Are you sure this is going to be ugly? Derek is going to fight us every step of the way. I know, but you are my mom, and this is the right thing to do. They finished their breakfast and got back in the car. Elena's phone rang as she was pulling out of the parking lot. It was a number she did not recognize. Mrs. Mitchell, my name is Dr. Catherine Hayes. I am a professor of history at the University of Vermont. I received a call from a colleague at the State Historical Society. She said you have found some documents that might be of significant historical interest. Elena's heart jumped. Yes, I found letters and journals documenting a refugee sanctuary that operated during the Depression and World War II. That sounds extraordinary. Would you be willing to meet with me? I would like to see these documents for myself. Of course, when I can come to the property tomorrow morning, if that works for you, that would be perfect. Elena hung up and looked at Sophie. The university is interested in what I found. Sophie grinned. This is really happening, is it not? Yes, this is really happening. They drove back to the mansion that afternoon. Sophie's reaction when she first saw the house was exactly what Elena's had been then. Shock followed by fascination. It looks like something out of a movie, Sophie said. Wait until you see the inside. They spent the rest of the day going through the documents together. Elena showed Sophie the letters, the ledgers, the journal entries. She told her about Ruth Adler's phone call and the family that had been saved. By evening, Sophie was as invested in the story as Elena was. We need to find more of them, Sophie said. More people like Mrs. Adler. More descendants of the families Grandfather William helped. I was thinking the same thing, but I do not know how to reach them. Sophie pulled out her phone. Leave that to me. I am going to create a website, a place where people can share their stories. If we can find enough descendants, we can build a whole history of what happened here." Elena stared at her daughter. "When did you get so smart?" Sophie smiled. "I learned from my mom. They worked late into the night." Sophie set up a simple website and social media accounts. Elena drafted a statement explaining what they had found and asking anyone with connections to the Mitchell Sanctuary to come forward. By the time they finally went to sleep, Sophie on a mattress they had dragged into the study and Elena in the leather chair, they had already received 3 responses. The next morning, Dr. Catherine Hayes arrived at 9 o'clock sharp. She was a woman in her 50s with graying hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She brought 2 graduate students with her, both carrying equipment for photographing and cataloging documents. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is remarkable." Dr. Hayes held one of the letters up to the light, examining the paper and ink. "These appear to be completely authentic. The paper is consistent with the period. The handwriting styles are varied, suggesting multiple authors. This is a genuine historical find." "There is more," Elena said. "A lot more." She led Dr. Hayes through the house, showing her the hidden compartments and the documents they contained. The historian's excitement grew with each new discovery. "Do you understand what you have here?" Dr. Hayes asked finally. "This documents an entire chapter of American history that has been largely forgotten. Private citizens creating networks to help refugees, underground railroads for Jewish families fleeing the Holocaust. This could rewrite our understanding of that period. That is what I want. I want people to know what my grandfather did." "And what about your family?" Dr. Hayes asked carefully. "I understand there are others who have a claim to this property. They want to destroy all of this. They want to bury the truth because it makes them look bad." Dr. Hayes nodded slowly. "Then we need to move quickly. I would like to propose a partnership. The university will help you preserve and catalog these documents. We will provide expertise and resources. In exchange, we would like to eventually house the collection in our archives where it can be studied and shared with the public. What about the house itself? That is up to you. But I would suggest turning it into a historical site, a museum that tells the story of what happened here. There may be grants available for that kind of project." Elena looked at Sophie, who was nodding eagerly. "Let us do it," Sophie said. Elena turned back to Dr. Hayes. "Yes, let us do it." They shook hands, and Elena felt something shift inside her. She was not just defending an inheritance anymore. She was building a legacy. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Dr. Hayes and her team came to the house almost every day, photographing documents, conducting interviews, piecing together the full story of the Mitchell Sanctuary. More descendants came forward, an elderly man whose parents had stayed at the house in 1935, a woman whose aunt had been a painter sheltered during the Depression, a family from California whose grandmother had escaped from Berlin in 1940. Each story added another layer to the picture Elena was building. Each voice confirmed what she already knew. Her grandfather had been a hero, and the family had tried to erase him. Sophie threw herself into the project with an energy Elena had not seen from her daughter in years. She managed the website, coordinated with descendants, handled social media. She was a natural organizer, and Elena found herself relying on her more and more. They talked in the evenings, really talked in a way they had not in years. Sophie told Elena about the problems she had been having at school, about the loneliness she had felt during the divorce, about the anger she had directed at her mother, because it was easier than admitting she was hurt. Elena listened. She apologized for the times she had been too wrapped up in her own pain to see her daughters. She promised to do better. It was not perfect. There were still moments of tension, still old wounds that needed time to heal, but they were trying, and that was more than Elena had dared to hope for. On the 4th week, Tyler came home. Elena's 19-year-old son had been distant for years, wrapped up in college and his own life. He rarely called, rarely visited. When Elena had told him about the inheritance, he had barely responded. But Sophie had been sending him updates about the project, and something in those messages had finally gotten through. He showed up at the mansion on a Thursday afternoon, driving a beat-up car he had borrowed from a friend. He stood in the driveway for a long moment, staring up at the house. Elena walked out to meet him. "You came. Sophie would not stop texting me." Tyler's voice was guarded. "She said you found something important." "I did. Do you want to see it?" He nodded slowly. Elena led him inside and showed him everything. The letters, the ledgers, the journal. The stories of the families who had been saved. Tyler read in silence, his expression unreadable. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. Why did nobody tell us about this? Because the family was ashamed, not of Grandfather William, of what our family did to try to stop him. Dad knew about this. Yes, he knew, and he chose to bury it. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something Elena had not expected. "I have been so angry at you, Mom, for the divorce, for getting pregnant, for always seeming like you had everything under control when I felt like I was falling apart." "Tyler, let me finish." He took a deep breath. "I blamed you for everything because it was easier than blaming Dad. Easier than admitting that he left because he was selfish. Easier than facing the truth." Elena felt tears streaming down her face. "I am sorry," Tyler said, "for pushing you away, for not being there, for believing the lies Dad and Uncle Derek told me about you. Oh, sweetheart." Elena stepped forward and pulled him into a hug. He stiffened at first, then relaxed into her arms. "I want to help," he said into her shoulder. "With whatever you are doing here, I want to be part of it." Of course you can." They stood there for a long time, mother and son reconnecting after years of distance. When they finally pulled apart, Sophie was standing in the doorway, watching them with tears in her own eyes. "About time you showed up," she said to her brother. Tyler laughed. A real laugh, the kind Elena had not heard from him in years. Sorry, better late than never, right? That night, for the first time in as long as Elena could remember, her family ate dinner together. Not a perfect family, not a complete family, but her family. And it was enough. The newspaper article ran 3 days later. Vermont mansion hid secret sanctuary, or during Depression and war years. The headline stretched across the front page. Below it was a photograph of the estate and a smaller image of William Mitchell's portrait. The story was thorough. The reporter had interviewed Elena, Dr. Hayes, and several descendants. She had examined the documents and verified their authenticity. She had traced the network of safe houses that William Mitchell had been part of. And she had told the truth about the family's attempt to bury the history. Elena's phone started ringing before she finished reading the article. The first call was from a national news outlet requesting an interview. The second was from a documentary filmmaker interested in telling the story. The third was from Derek. Elena answered. "What have you done?" Derek's voice was shaking with rage. "Do you have any idea what you have done? I told the truth. You have destroyed us. You have destroyed our family, our father's memory. Our father tried to turn away families who were fleeing the Holocaust. His memory deserves to be destroyed." "You self-righteous little..." Derek caught himself. "This is not over. You think you have won? You have not won anything. I am going to sue you for defamation. I am going to sue the newspaper. I am going to make sure everyone knows you are a liar. I have documentation for everything, Derek. Letters, journals, financial records. I have testimony from survivors and their descendants." "What do you have, Silence, on the other end?" "That is what I thought." "Elena, listen to me." Derek's voice changed, becoming almost pleading. "We can still fix this. We can issue a statement saying the story was exaggerated. We can pay off the descendants, make them retract their statements. We can bury this again before it spreads any further." "No." "What do you mean, no? I mean no. I am not going to help you bury the truth. I am not going to let you erase what Grandfather William did. This story is going to be told, Derek. All of it. And there is nothing you can do to stop it." "Then you are no longer my sister." Derek's voice went cold. "As far as I am concerned, you died the same day Grandfather did. Do not contact me. Do not contact Vanessa. And do not ever use the Mitchell name again." He hung up. Elena set down her phone and looked at her children who had been listening to the conversation. "Well," Sophie said. "That went well." Elena laughed. "It was either that or cry." "He will come around eventually," Tyler said. "When he realizes he cannot win?" "Maybe. Maybe not." Elena shook her head. "Either way, I am done trying to make peace with people who want me to lie. We are doing the right thing. That is all that matters." The next few days were a whirlwind. More news outlets picked up the story. The website Sophie had created was flooded with visitors. Descendants from all over the country reached out to share their families' stories. Dr. Hayes called with news that the university had approved funding for a full historical study of the Mitchell Sanctuary. Grant applications were being filed to restore the mansion and turn it into a museum. And then on the 5th day after the article ran, Elena received a phone call that changed everything. Mrs. Mitchell, the voice was elderly, female, heavily accented. "My name is Hannah Rosen. I am calling from Israel." "Mrs. Rosen, how can I help you? I saw your story in the news." "My mother, she passed away many years ago, but before she died, she told me something about your grandfather." Elena's heart began to beat faster. "What did she tell you?" "She told me that in 1941 she was brought to a house in Vermont, a big house in the woods. She was pregnant at the time, very pregnant, and very scared." Elena sat down slowly, her own hand moving to her belly, where her baby was kicking. "Go on." "My mother, her name was Esther. She had escaped from Poland. Her husband, my father, he did not make it. He was killed trying to get them out. I am so sorry. Your grandfather took her in. He gave her a room-food medical care. And when her time came when she went into labor, he brought a doctor to the house. A doctor who was also helping refugees. Elena realized she was crying. My brother was born in that house, Mrs. Mitchell. In your grandfather's house. He would have died if not for your grandfather. My mother would have died. Mrs. Rosen. My brother, he grew up to be a doctor himself. He spent his whole life helping people the way your grandfather helped our mother, and his children, and their children. All of us exist because of what your grandfather did. Elena could not speak. I am calling because I want to thank you for telling this story, for making sure the world knows what kind of man William Mitchell was. My mother never forgot him. She talked about him until the day she died, and now because of you, his memory will live on. Thank you, Elena finally managed. Thank you for calling. Thank you for telling me this. No, thank you. After she hung up, Elena sat in the study for a long time looking at her grandfather's portrait. A baby had been born in this house. A refugee baby whose father had died trying to save his family. A baby who had grown up to be a doctor and save other lives. She thought about her own baby kicking inside her. The baby Marcus had not wanted. The baby she had chosen to keep despite everything. Maybe that was why Grandfather William had chosen her. Not because she was special, but because she understood what it meant to protect a child against all odds. She placed her hand on her belly and made a silent promise. I will tell your story, Grandfather, all of it, and I will make sure my children know where they come from. The portrait seemed to smile down at her. Outside, she heard Sophie and Tyler laughing about something. The sound of family. The sound of healing. Elena stood up and walked to the window. The sun was setting over the grounds, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. 6 weeks ago, she had been alone, divorced, estranged from her children, cut off by her family. Now she had her daughter back. Her son had come home. A community of survivors and descendants was forming around her. A university was partnering with her to preserve history. And somewhere in the world, there were people alive today because of what her grandfather had done in this house 70 years ago. It was not the life Elena had planned. It was not the life anyone would have predicted for her. But it was hers. And for the first time in a very long time, she was proud of it. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Mitchell, my name is David Goldstein. My grandmother was one of the children your grandfather saved in 1940. I am a journalist for the New York Times. I would like to write a feature story about the Mitchell Sanctuary. Would you be willing to talk? Elena smiled and began typing her response. Yes, I would be happy to talk. The story was just beginning. David Goldstein arrived at the mansion 3 days later. He was younger than Elena had expected, perhaps 40, with dark hair and intense eyes that reminded her of the photographs she had seen of his grandmother as a young woman. He carried a leather messenger bag and a digital recorder, and when he shook Elena's hand, his grip was firm, but his fingers trembled slightly. My grandmother talked about this place until the day she died, he said. I never believed it was real. I thought it was a story she told to comfort herself. A fairy tale about a kind man who saved her family when the world wanted them dead. It was real, Elena said. All of it? She led him through the house, showing him the documents, the hidden compartments, the journal entries that mentioned his family by name. David read in silence, his jaw tightening with each page. When he reached the entry about his grandmother's arrival, he stopped. October 15th, 1940. The Goldstein family arrived last night. Mother, father, 3 children, ages 4, 7, and 12. They walked for 2 weeks to reach the Swiss border. The father carries scars from a beating by soldiers. The mother has not spoken since they arrived. The youngest child, a girl named Sarah, asked me if the bad men would find them here. I told her no, I pray I am not lying. David looked up. Sarah was my grandmother. She was 4 years old when she came here. Elena nodded. I know, she never forgot this house. She used to describe it to me when I was a child. The big staircase, the room with the yellow wallpaper, the kind man who gave her a doll for her birthday because she had lost everything. Elena felt tears threatening. We found that story in one of the letters. Your great-grandfather wrote to thank my grandfather for the doll. He said it was the first time Sarah had smiled since they left Germany. David set down the journal and wiped his eyes. I need to tell this story. The world needs to know. That is why I called you. They spent the next 2 days conducting interviews. David talked to Elena, to Dr. Hayes, to Sophie and Tyler. He called Ruth Adler and Hannah Rosen and a dozen other descendants. He photographed every document, every letter, every page of the journals. On the third day, he sat down with Elena in the study for a final conversation. "There is something I need to ask you," he said. "Something personal." "Go ahead." "Your family. Derek and Vanessa, they have been making statements to the press, calling you a liar, saying you fabricated the documents, saying you manipulated your grandfather into changing his will." "I know. How does that make you feel?" Elena was quiet for a moment. "Sad, angry, but mostly just tired. I spent my whole life trying to be part of that family, trying to earn their approval, trying to be good enough. And now I realize that their approval was never worth having." "What do you mean?" "I mean that they knew about this history. Maybe not the details, but they knew our father had done something shameful. They knew Grandfather William had been erased from the family story for a reason. And instead of asking questions, instead of seeking the truth, they just went along with the cover-up. They let a hero be forgotten because it was easier than confronting their own family's failures." David nodded slowly. "And now they're trying to do it again." "Yes, but this time they are going to fail." The New York Times article ran 2 weeks later. It was a long-form feature spanning 3 full pages with photographs and sidebars and pull quotes from descendants. The headline read, "The Forgotten Sanctuary, How One Man Saved Hundreds of Lives and Was Erased by His Own Family." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Elena's phone rang constantly. Reporters, historians, documentary filmmakers, descendants she had never heard of. The website Sophie had created crashed from the traffic and had to be rebuilt on a larger server. Letters arrived at the mansion every day, some from descendants with their own stories to share, some from strangers who had been moved by the article, some from Holocaust survivors who had found refuge in other safe houses and wanted to add their voices to the chorus. But not all the responses were positive. Derek filed a defamation lawsuit the day after the article ran. He gave interviews calling Elena mentally unstable and accusing her of fabricating evidence. He hired a public relations firm to push back against the story. Vanessa released a statement claiming that Elena had manipulated a dying old man and was now exploiting his memory for personal gain. Marcus called Sophie and tried to convince her to come back to him. When she refused, he threatened to sue for custody. Elena weathered it all. She had Dr. Hayes and the university backing her claims. She had dozens of witnesses who could testify to the authenticity of the documents. She had the truth, but the attacks took their toll. 3 weeks after the article ran, Elena woke in the middle of the night with sharp pains in her abdomen. She was 8 months pregnant now, and for a terrible moment she thought she was losing the baby. Sophie drove her to the hospital. Tyler stayed at the mansion to keep working on the project. The doctors examined her and delivered their verdict. "Stress," the obstetrician said. "Your blood pressure is too high. If you do not slow down, you risk premature labor." "I cannot slow down," Elena said. "There is too much to do." Mrs. Mitchell, the doctor, looked at her seriously. "If you do not slow down, you could lose this baby." Elena stared at her. The words hit like a physical blow. Sophie took her hand. "Mom, listen to her." "But the project can wait," Sophie said firmly. "Tyler and I can handle things for a few weeks. You need to rest." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to say that she could not stop now, not when they were so close to securing the grants, to finalizing the museum plans, to finishing what she had started. But she looked at her daughter's face, saw the fear there, saw the love, and she thought about the baby inside her. The baby she had fought so hard to keep. The baby who deserved a mother who would put them first. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay." She spent the next 3 weeks on bed rest at the mansion. Sophie and Tyler took over the day-to-day operations of the project. Dr. Hayes handled the academic side. David Goldstein continued to work on follow-up stories. Elena watched from the sidelines, frustrated, but forced to admit that her children were handling things beautifully. Sophie had inherited her mother's organizational skills and her grandfather's determination. Tyler had found a purpose in the project that seemed to have transformed him from a directionless college student into a focused young man. Maybe this was what Grandfather William had really left. Her Elena thought one afternoon. Not a house or a legacy, but a way to bring her family back together. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, 4 weeks after Elena had started her bed rest. Sophie burst into her room, her face flushed with excitement. Mom, you have to hear this. What is it?" "It is Vanessa. She is on the phone. She wants to talk to you." Elena's stomach clenched. "Tell her I am not interested." "Mom, wait." Sophie held out the phone. "She is crying. She says she needs to tell you something. Something about Dad. Our grandfather." Elena hesitated. Then she took the phone. "Vanessa, Elena?" Her sister's voice was thick with tears. "I need to see you, please. There is something you need to know. Why should I trust you? Because I found something. In Dad's papers. Something that changes everything." Elena was quiet for a moment. "What did you find? And I cannot tell you over the phone. I need to show you. Please, Elena. I know I have been terrible to you. I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. But this is important. This is about Grandfather William, about what really happened." Elena looked at Sophie, who was watching her with wide eyes. "Fine," Elena said. "Come to the mansion tomorrow. But if this is some kind of trick, some attempt to manipulate me—" "It is not. I swear it is not. I will be there at noon." Vanessa hung up. Sophie stared at her mother. "What do you think she found? I do not know. But I intend to find out." Vanessa arrived at exactly noon the next day. She looked nothing like the polished, put-together woman Elena had seen at the funeral. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she had not slept in days. She carried a cardboard box under one arm. Elena met her at the door. Sophie and Tyler stood behind her, protective and suspicious. "Come in," Elena said. Vanessa walked into the entry hall and stopped looking around. She had never been to the mansion before, had never wanted to see it. "It is smaller than I imagined," she said quietly. "It is bigger than it looks." Elena gestured toward the study. "This way." They gathered in the study. Vanessa set the box on the desk and stood there for a moment, her hands shaking. "Before I show you this," she said, "I need to apologize. For everything. For what I said at the funeral. For the lawsuit. For trying to destroy you." Elena said nothing. "I was scared," Vanessa continued. "Derek told me that if the truth came out, it would ruin us. That our father's memory would be destroyed. That everything we had built would be worthless. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Because it was easier than facing the truth. And now I have seen the truth." Vanessa opened the box. "After the Times article ran, I started going through Dad's papers. I told myself I was looking for evidence to use against you, something to prove you were lying. But you found something else," Elena said. "Yes." Vanessa pulled out a stack of yellowed papers. "I found these." She handed them to Elena. They were letters. Old letters written in their father's handwriting. Dated from 1955 to 1960. Elena began to read. The first letter was addressed to someone named Robert Stern. "Dear Mr. Stern, I am writing to inform you that my father has passed away. As his executor, I am selling the Vermont property and disposing of all contents. Any documentation related to the activities that took place there during the war years will be destroyed. I trust you understand the necessity of this action. Our family's future depends on burying this chapter of our history permanently." Elena looked up at Vanessa. He was going to destroy everything. "Keep reading." The second letter was addressed to someone at the State Department. "I am writing to report potential communist sympathizers who may have entered this country illegally during the war years. My father, William Mitchell, harbored numerous foreign nationals at his Vermont property between 1939 and 1942. While I cannot provide specific names, I believe many of these individuals may have had ties to subversive organizations." Elena's hands began to shake. "He turned them in," she whispered. "Our father turned in the people Grandfather William saved." Vanessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "There are more letters. Correspondence with the FBI, with immigration authorities. He spent years trying to track down the refugees and report them. He wanted them deported, investigated, ruined." Why Elena could barely speak. Why would he do that? Because he hated them. Vanessa's voice broke. He blamed them for destroying his relationship with his father. He blamed them for the family fortune that was spent on their care. He blamed them for everything that went wrong in his life. Elena set down the letters. She felt sick. Did he succeed? Did anyone get deported because of him? I do not know. But there are more documents, lists of names, addresses. He was building files on the descendants too, tracking them for decades. Elena thought about Ruth Adler, about Hannah Rosen, about David Goldstein's grandmother Sarah, all of them living their lives never knowing that her father had been hunting them. Does Derek know about this? Vanessa hesitated. Then she nodded. I confronted him last night. He knew. He found these papers years ago when Dad died. He has been sitting on them ever since. And he never told you. He said it was for my own protection. He said if anyone found out what Dad had done, it would destroy us. Elena looked at her sister. All these years you have been fighting to protect a man who tried to destroy innocent people. I know, Vanessa sank into a chair. I know, and I am so sorry. I did not know. I swear I did not know. Elena stared at the letters spread across the desk. Evidence of her father's hatred, his cruelty, his betrayal of everything his own father had stood for. She thought about the family she had grown up in, the coldness she had always felt, the sense that she never quite belonged. Now she understood. Her father had been a monster, and her siblings had been raised in his image. But Vanessa was here now, crying, apologizing, trying to make things right. Maybe it was not too late for all of them. "What do you want to do with these?" Elena asked. Vanessa wiped her eyes. "I want to give them to the university. I want them to be part of the historical record. I want people to know the whole truth, not just what Grandfather William did, but what our father tried to do to undo it." "Are you sure this will destroy Dad's memory completely? His memory deserves to be destroyed." Vanessa met her eyes. "You were right, Elena. You were right about everything. I was so focused on protecting the family reputation that I forgot what family is supposed to mean. And Derek, I am done with Derek." Vanessa's voice hardened. "He knew about this for years. He used it to manipulate me, to control me. I am filing for divorce from the family trust. I am withdrawing from the lawsuit, and I am going to testify on your behalf, if you need me to." Elena looked at her sister for a long moment, the sister who had tormented her as a child, who had sneered at her choices, who had tried to destroy her just weeks ago. People could change. She had to believe that. "Thank you," Elena said, "for bringing this to me, for telling the truth." Vanessa started crying again. "I do not deserve your thanks. I do not deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, but I am going to give it to you anyway, because that is what Grandfather William would have done." Sophie stepped forward. She had been watching the whole exchange in silence. Now she spoke up. "Aunt Vanessa, can I ask you something?" Vanessa looked at her. "Of course. Why did you hate my mom so much? What did she ever do to you?" Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "She did not do anything. That was the problem. Your mother was always kind, always generous, always trying to help people, and I hated her for it because she reminded me of everything I was not." Sophie nodded slowly. "That is really sad." "Yes, it is." Elena stood up. She was exhausted, emotionally drained, but she felt something shifting inside her, a weight lifting. "Stay for dinner," she said to Vanessa. "There is a lot we need to talk about." Vanessa looked surprised. "Are you sure I am sure? We have wasted enough years being enemies. It is time to be sisters." They ate dinner together that night. Elena, Sophie, Tyler, and Vanessa. 4 people who had been strangers to each other learning how to be family. It was awkward at first, stilted, full of long silences and careful words. But by the end of the evening, something had changed. Tyler made a joke and Vanessa laughed. Sophie asked her aunt about her work and actually listened to the answer. Elena poured wine for her sister and they clinked glasses. It was not forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. After Vanessa left, Sophie sat down next to her mother. "That was intense," she said. "Yes, it was. Do you really forgive her?" Elena thought about it. "I am trying to. Your grandfather forgave people who had done terrible things. He believed everyone deserved a second chance. I want to believe that too. What about Uncle Derek?" Elena sighed. "Derek is different. He knew the truth and chose to hide it. He chose to keep fighting even when he knew he was wrong. I do not know if I can forgive that. Maybe someday. Maybe, but not today." Elena's phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Hayes. "Urgent, call me immediately." Elena dialed. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong." Dr. Hayes sounded breathless with excitement. "Something incredible just happened. The National Archives found a file, a government file from 1942. It is about your grandfather." "What kind of file?" "An FBI file. They investigated him during the war. They knew about the sanctuary. They knew about the refugees." Elena's blood ran cold. "Did they arrest him?" "No." That is the incredible part. Someone intervened. Someone high up in the government. They made the investigation go away. Who, we do not know yet. But there is a name in the file. A woman who vouched for your grandfather. She testified that he was a patriot, not a traitor. She convinced the FBI to leave him alone. Who was she? Her name was Eleanor Roosevelt. Elena nearly dropped the phone. The First Lady, yes, apparently she knew about the refugee networks. She supported them quietly behind the scenes. And when your grandfather came under investigation, she stepped in to protect him. Elena sat down slowly. Eleanor Roosevelt had saved her grandfather. The First Lady of the United States had known about the Mitchell Sanctuary. This changes everything, Dr. Hayes continued. This connects your grandfather to the highest levels of American society. This is not just local history anymore. This is national history. What do we do now? Now we tell the world. Elena hung up and looked at her children who were staring at her expectantly. "You are not going to believe this," she said. And she told them about Eleanor Roosevelt. The next morning, Elena woke to her phone ringing. It was David Goldstein. "I just got off the phone with my editor," he said. "The FBI file story is huge. They want me to write a follow-up piece. Front page. That is wonderful. There is more. The Smithsonian has reached out. They want to acquire some of your grandfather's documents for their permanent collection." Elena sat up in bed, her heart racing. "The Smithsonian, yes. And PBS is interested in producing a documentary, and 3 publishing houses have contacted me about book rights." Elena could not speak. "Mrs. Mitchell, are you still there? I am here. I am just..." "This is overwhelming, I know, but this is what happens when you tell the truth. The truth has a way of spreading." After she hung up, Elena walked to the window of the study. She looked out at the grounds, at the gardens that were slowly being restored, at the trees that had stood witness to 70 years of history. She thought about her grandfather sitting in this same room, making the decision to risk everything to help strangers. She thought about the families he had saved, the children who had grown up to have children of their own, the lives that had rippled outward from this place like waves from a stone dropped in still water. She thought about her own baby due in just a few weeks now. A baby who would grow up knowing this history, knowing where they came from, knowing what their family had done, not the family of shame and secrets that Derek wanted to protect, the real family, the family of courage and sacrifice and love. Elena placed her hand on her belly and felt her baby kick. "We are going to be okay, little one," she whispered. "We are going to be more than okay." Her phone buzzed again. Another call, another opportunity. She answered it. The story was spreading, and Elena was ready to tell it. 2 weeks after the Eleanor Roosevelt revelation, Elena went into labor. It happened at 3 in the morning. She woke to a sharp pain that took her breath away, followed by a gush of warmth that soaked through the sheets. For a moment, she lay there in the darkness, her hand pressed against her belly, feeling the contraction build and crest and finally release. Then she called out for Sophie. Her daughter appeared in the doorway within seconds, her hair wild from sleep. "Mom, what is wrong? The baby is coming." Sophie's eyes went wide. "Now." "But you still have 2 weeks. Tell that to the baby." Tyler drove them to the hospital. Sophie sat in the back seat with Elena holding her hand through each contraction, timing them on her phone. 4 minutes apart, Sophie said. "The books say we should go to the hospital when they are 5 minutes apart. We are ahead of schedule." Elena laughed through her pain. "Since when do you read books about childbirth?" "Since you got put on bed rest and I realized I might have to deliver this baby myself." They reached the hospital at 4:30. The nurses rushed Elena into a delivery room while Sophie and Tyler waited in the hallway, pacing and anxious. The labor was hard, harder than Elena remembered from her previous pregnancies. She was older now, her body less resilient. The contractions came faster and stronger, and the doctors watched her blood pressure with increasing concern. At 7 in the morning, the obstetrician came in with a serious expression. "Mrs. Mitchell, the baby is in some distress. We need to consider a cesarean section." Elena shook her head. "No, I can do this. Just give me more time. Your blood pressure is dangerously high. Every minute we wait increases the risk." Elena looked at the doctor. She thought about everything she had been through in the past 2 months. The funeral, the will reading, Derek's attacks, the discovery of her grandfather's legacy, the reconciliation with her children, the truth about her father. She had survived all of that. She could survive this too. "Let me try," she said. "Please. Just a little longer." The doctor hesitated. Then she nodded. 30 more minutes. If there is no progress, we go to surgery." Elena closed her eyes and focused. She thought about her grandfather sitting in his study making the decision to help strangers when no one else would. She thought about the courage it must have taken, the sacrifice. If he could do that, she could do this. She pushed. At 8:17 in the morning, William Mitchell Cole was born. He was small but healthy, with a full head of dark hair and lungs that announced his arrival with an indignant wail. The nurses cleaned him and wrapped him in a blanket and placed him in Elena's arms. She looked down at her son and felt something break open inside her. All the fear, all the pain, all the uncertainty of the past months dissolved in that moment. There was only this tiny, perfect person who had chosen her as his mother. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "Welcome to the world." Sophie and Tyler came in a few minutes later. Sophie was crying before she even reached the bed. "He is beautiful, Mom. He is so beautiful." Tyler hung back, looking uncomfortable in the way young men often do around newborns. But when Elena held out the baby for him to see, something shifted in his expression. "He looks like Grandfather William," Tyler said quietly. "From the portrait." Elena looked down at her son. He did. There was something in the shape of his face, the set of his eyes, that echoed the man in the painting. "That is why I named him William," she said. "William Mitchell Cole." Sophie wiped her eyes. Grandfather would have loved that. Yes, I think he would. The hospital room filled with visitors over the next few hours. Dr. Hayes came with flowers and a card signed by her entire research team. David Goldstein stopped by with a stuffed bear and news about the follow-up article. Even Vanessa appeared hesitant and uncertain, carrying a gift basket. "I was not sure if I should come," Vanessa said, "but I wanted to meet him." Elena smiled at her sister. "I am glad you did. Come, hold your nephew." Vanessa took the baby carefully as if he might break. She looked down at his face and something softened in her expression. "He really does look like grandfather," she said. "He does." Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up at Elena. "I talked to Derek yesterday." Elena tensed. "What did he say?" "He is not doing well. The lawsuit has fallen apart since I withdrew. The public opinion has turned against him. His business partners are distancing themselves." "Good," Tyler muttered. Vanessa shook her head. "It is not good. He is my brother. Our brother. And he is self-destructing." "He made his choices," Elena said. "I know. But I keep thinking about what you said. About second chances. About what grandfather would have done." Elena looked at her sister. "Grandfather helped people who wanted to be helped. People who were willing to change. Is Derek willing to change? I do not know. But I think someone should give him the opportunity to try." Elena thought about it. She thought about all of the pain Derek had caused her, the threats, the lies, the attempt to destroy her and take everything she had. But she also thought about her grandfather, about the refugees he had sheltered. Some of them had probably done terrible things before they came to him. Some of them had probably been angry and bitter and lost. He had helped them anyway. "If Derek wants to talk," Elena said slowly, "I will listen, but he has to come to me, and he has to be willing to apologize, really apologize, not just for strategy, for real." Vanessa nodded. "I will tell him." She handed the baby back to Elena and left. Sophie sat down on the edge of the bed. "Do you really think Uncle Derek can change?" Elena looked down at her son. "I do not know, but I have to believe it is possible. Otherwise, what was the point of everything grandfather did?" 3 days later, Elena brought baby William home to the mansion. Home. It felt strange to use that word for a place she had only known for 2 months. But walking through the front door, with her son in her arms, Elena realized it was true. This was home now. For her, for Sophie, for Tyler, for the new baby, for the family they were building together. The restoration work had continued while she was in the hospital. The worst of the structural damage had been repaired. The electricity and plumbing were working properly now. Several rooms had been cleaned and repainted. It was still a long way from finished. But it was livable. More than livable. It was starting to feel like what it had been 70 years ago. A sanctuary. Dr. Hayes had set up a temporary office in one of the downstairs rooms. Her research team came and went at all hours, cataloging documents and conducting interviews. The website Sophie had created now had thousands of followers, and new descendants were reaching out every day. The PBS documentary team arrived a week after Elena came home from the hospital. They spent 3 days filming the house, interviewing Elena and her children, recording testimony from descendants who had traveled from across the country to participate. Ruth Adler flew in from Florida. At 93, she had not been on an airplane in 20 years, but she insisted on making the trip. "I had to see it," she told Elena, standing in the entry hall with tears streaming down her face. "I had to see it one more time before I die." Elena held her hand. "Thank you for coming." Ruth reached out and touched the wall, her fingers tracing the faded wallpaper. "I remember this. I remember running my hand along this wall when I was a little girl. I remember thinking it was the most beautiful house in the world. It will be again," Elena promised. "We are going to restore it. Turn it into a museum. Make sure everyone knows what happened here." Ruth looked at her. "Your grandfather would be so proud of you." "I hope so. He is. I know he is." Hannah Rosen's son flew in from Israel. David Goldstein's mother came from New York. The children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the refugees William Mitchell had saved gathered in the house that had once sheltered their ancestors. It was overwhelming. It was beautiful. It was everything Elena had hoped for, and more. But there was still one person missing. Derek called on a Tuesday evening 2 weeks after the documentary team left. Elena was in the study feeding baby William when her phone rang. She looked at the screen and felt her stomach tighten. She answered anyway. "Elena." Derek's voice sounded different. Smaller somehow. Less aggressive. "Derek, I need to see you, please." "Why?" "Because I owe you an apology, a real one." Vanessa said you would listen if I was willing to be honest. Elena was quiet for a moment. Baby William stirred in her arms, making soft sounds. Come tomorrow, she said finally. Noon. Thank you. He hung up. Sophie appeared in the doorway. Was that Uncle Derek? Yes. What did he want to apologize? Sophie snorted. I will believe that when I see it. So will I, but I have to give him the chance. Derek arrived at exactly noon the next day. He came alone, no lawyer, no Vanessa, no backup. He parked his BMW in the driveway and sat there for a long moment before getting out. Elena watched him from the window. He looked different. Older. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. She met him at the front door. Come in. Derek stepped into the entry hall and stopped. He looked around at the restoration work, at the photographs that had been hung on the walls, at the display cases Dr. Hayes had set up in the parlor. You have done a lot with the place, he said. We have. She led him to the study. Baby William was sleeping in a bassinet near the desk. Derek looked at the infant and something flickered across his face. He looks like grandfather, he said quietly. I know. What did you name him? William. William Mitchell Cole. Derek closed his eyes for a moment. Then he sat down heavily in one of the chairs. I do not know where to start, he said. How about the beginning? Derek nodded slowly. When I was 12, Dad took me aside and told me something. He said there was a house in Vermont that the family owned. A house full of secrets. He said those secrets could destroy us if anyone ever found out. He made me promise never to ask questions about it. Never to go there. Never to speak of it to anyone. Elena sat down across from him. Baby William made a soft sound and she reached over to rock the bassinet. When Dad died, Derek continued, I went through his papers. I found the letters, the ones about the refugees, the ones to the FBI. I understood then what he had been hiding, what he had been ashamed of. But you did not tell anyone. No, I thought I was protecting the family, protecting our reputation, our legacy. You were protecting a lie. I know that now. Derek's voice broke. I know that now. But back then I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought Dad had been right to bury it. I thought Grandfather William was a fool who had risked everything for strangers who did not deserve his help. And what do you think now? Derek looked up at her. His eyes were wet. I think I was wrong. About everything. About Grandfather. About Dad. About you. Elena said nothing. She waited. I read the articles Derek said. I watched the interviews with the descendants. I heard their stories. About what Grandfather did for them. About how he saved their families. About how they would not exist if he had not been willing to take the risk. And I realized that everything I believed about our family was a lie. We were not the respectable, successful people I thought we were. We were cowards, hiding from the truth, erasing the best thing our family ever did because it made us uncomfortable. Derek wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. When I attacked you at the funeral, when I threatened to destroy you, I told myself I was defending the family honor. But there was no honor to defend. Just shame. Just secrets. Just generations of lies. Elena felt tears threatening in her own eyes. She fought them back. You hurt me, Derek. You tried to take away everything I had. You turned my daughter against me. You conspired with my ex-husband to spy on me. I know. You called my baby a bastard. I know. Derek's voice was barely a whisper. I know. And I am so sorry. I was angry. I was scared. I lashed out at you because you were doing what I should have done years ago. You were telling the truth. Elena looked at her brother, the brother who had pushed her on swings, who had taught her to ride a bike, who had become a stranger somewhere along the way. Why did you hate me so much? Derek shook his head. I did not hate you. I envied you. Envied me? Elena almost laughed. For what? My failed marriage, my struggling career, my tiny apartment. For your integrity, for your courage, for the way you always did what you thought was right, even when it cost you. I spent my whole life chasing success, chasing money, chasing the approval of people who did not matter. And you spent yours helping people. Just like Grandfather. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Baby William stirred again, and she lifted him from the bassinet, cradling him against her chest. I do not know if I can forgive you, she said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand. But I am willing to try, on one condition. Anything. You have to help us. With the foundation, with the museum, with telling Grandfather's story. You have the business connections we need, the resources. If you really want to make things right, put them to work for something that matters. Derek stared at her. You would trust me with that. After everything I have done, no, I would not trust you at all, but I would give you the chance to earn trust. That is what grandfather would have done. Derek was silent for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, I will do whatever you need. Start by dropping the lawsuit. I already did. Filed the paperwork yesterday. Good. Now go home and think about what you really want, what kind of person you want to be, and when you figure that out, come back and we will talk about next steps. Derek stood up. He looked at baby William one more time. He really does look like grandfather, he said. Yes, he does. Derek walked to the door, then he stopped and turned back. Elena, thank you for giving me this chance. I do not deserve it. No, you do not, but that is what family does. Derek left. Sophie appeared in the doorway the moment his car pulled away. Well, he apologized. Do you believe him? Elena thought about it. I believe he wants to change. Whether he can actually do it remains to be seen. What happens now? Now we keep working. Keep building. Keep telling the truth. Sophie nodded. Then she smiled. Mom, I am proud of you. Elena felt her heart swell. For what? For all of it. For standing up to Uncle Derek. For finding grandfather's story. For having the baby. For not giving up even when everything seemed impossible. Elena hugged her daughter with one arm, careful not to disturb the baby sleeping against her chest. I am proud of you too, sweetheart. I could not have done any of this without you. They stood there for a moment, mother and daughter and baby in the house that had sheltered so many others. Then Sophie pulled back and grinned. Come on. Dr. Hayes found something new in the attic. You are going to want to see this? What is it? More letters, from Eleanor Roosevelt herself. Apparently she and grandfather corresponded for years. Elena's eyes went wide. Are you serious? Dead serious. Come on. They walked upstairs together, 3 generations of Mitchells exploring the legacy that had been hidden for so long. In the study, the portrait of William Mitchell watched over them with those kind, sad eyes. If Elena had looked closely, she might have thought she saw him smile. The letters from Eleanor Roosevelt changed everything again. Dr. Hayes had found them in a hidden compartment in the attic, sealed in a waterproof box that had preserved them perfectly for over 70 years. There were dozens of them spanning from 1940 to 1952, a correspondence between the First Lady and a quiet philanthropist in Vermont who shared her commitment to helping refugees. The letters revealed a relationship that went far beyond a single intervention with the FBI. Eleanor Roosevelt had known about the Mitchell Sanctuary from the beginning. She had helped coordinate refugee placements, provided contacts with sympathetic government officials, and funneled private donations to support the operation. In one letter dated March 1941, she wrote, Dear Mr. Mitchell, your work gives me hope in these dark times. When I think of the families you have sheltered, the children you have saved, I am reminded that courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination to act despite it. You are a true patriot, and I am honored to call you a friend. Elena read the letters with trembling hands. Her grandfather had been friends with Eleanor Roosevelt, had worked alongside her to save lives, had been part of a network that reached to the highest levels of American society, and no one had known. For 70 years, no one had known. The PBS documentary team came back to film the new discovery. David Goldstein wrote another front-page article for the Times. The Smithsonian expanded their acquisition request to include the Roosevelt correspondence. Suddenly, the Mitchell Sanctuary was not just a local historical footnote. It was a major discovery that rewrote the narrative of American refugee assistance during World War II. Requests for interviews poured in from around the world. Elena appeared on morning shows and evening news programs and late-night talk shows. She told her grandfather's story over and over, never tiring of it, never losing her sense of wonder at what he had accomplished. And through it all, baby William grew. He smiled for the first time at 6 weeks. He started sleeping through the night at 2 months. He reached for his mother's face with tiny fingers and looked at her with eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Sophie and Tyler stayed at the mansion, helping with the restoration and the foundation work. Tyler had deferred his return to college, declaring that this was more important than any class he could take. Sophie had started applying to universities with strong history programs inspired by Dr. Hayes and the work they were doing. Even Vanessa became a regular presence. She visited every weekend, helping where she could, learning about the history she had spent her life trying to ignore. She and Elena were not close yet, not the way sisters should be, but they were building something. Slowly, carefully, and Derek surprised everyone. He showed up 3 weeks after his apology with a business plan. A detailed professional proposal for turning the Mitchell Sanctuary into a fully funded historical site and educational center. I called in some favors, he said, spreading documents across the study desk. I have commitments from 3 major donors, enough to complete the restoration and establish an endowment that will keep the museum running for decades. Elena stared at the numbers. This is millions of dollars. Yes, why would these people give you this kind of money? Because I told them the truth. About grandfather, about dad, about what our family tried to bury, and because they believe in what you are doing here. Elena looked up at her brother. He met her eyes steadily without flinching. You told them about dad, about the FBI letters, all of it. Derek's voice was firm. If we are going to do this, we have to do it right. No more secrets, no more lies. The whole truth, even the parts that make us look bad. Elena felt something shift inside her. Something that had been closed for a long time beginning to open. Thank you, she said. For this. For everything. Derek nodded. It is the least I can do. 4 months after Elena first walked into the mansion, the Mitchell Sanctuary Foundation held its official launch. Over 200 people gathered on the restored grounds. Descendants from across the country and around the world. Historians and journalists and politicians. Ordinary people who had heard the story and wanted to be part of something meaningful. Elena stood on the front porch, baby William in her arms, looking out at the crowd. Sophie was there greeting visitors and handing out programs. Tyler was there giving tours of the house and explaining the historical exhibits. Vanessa was there managing logistics and coordinating with donors. And Derek was there standing quietly at the back watching his family with something like pride. Dr. Hayes introduced Elena, listing her accomplishments and praising her determination to uncover the truth. Then Elena stepped up to the microphone. 6 months ago, she began. I inherited this house from a grandfather I barely knew. My family told me to sell it. They told me to forget about it. They told me it was worthless. She looked out at the crowd. They were wrong. This house saved lives. Hundreds of lives. Artists and families, and refugees who had nowhere else to turn. They came here desperate and afraid, and they left with hope. With futures. With the chance to build lives and families of their own. She held up baby William so the crowd could see him. This is my son. His name is William Mitchell Cole, named for the grandfather who made all of this possible. He will grow up knowing this history, knowing where he comes from, knowing that his family stood on the right side when it mattered most. She looked at Sophie and Tyler, at Vanessa and Derek. We are not defined by the mistakes of our parents or the secrets of our past. We are defined by the choices we make, by the truth we tell, by the courage we show when courage is hardest. She turned back to the crowd. My grandfather chose courage. He chose truth. He chose to help strangers when the world wanted them destroyed. Today we honor that choice, and we commit to continuing his work. Not by hiding people from persecution, but by telling their stories, by remembering what happened here, by teaching future generations that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. She took a deep breath. Welcome to the Mitchell Sanctuary. Welcome home. The applause was thunderous. Elena stepped back from the microphone, tears streaming down her face. Sophie rushed up to hug her. That was beautiful, Mom. Thank you, sweetheart. Tyler joined them, awkward but smiling. Good speech. Thanks. Vanessa approached more hesitantly. Elena, that was incredible. Thank you for being here. I would not miss it. Even Derek came forward, standing at the edge of the family group. Grandfather would be proud, he said quietly. Elena looked at her brother. For the first time in as long as she could remember, she saw something genuine in his eyes. Something human. Yes, she said. I think he would. They stood together on the porch of the Mitchell Sanctuary, 4 siblings who had been torn apart by secrets and lies, slowly learning to be family again. Below them, the crowd mingled and talked and explored the grounds. Descendants embraced each other, sharing stories of grandparents and great-grandparents who had found refuge in this place. Historians examined exhibits and took notes. Children ran across the restored gardens, their laughter echoing off the stone walls. Elena watched it all, with her son in her arms. 6 months ago, she had been alone, divorced, estranged from her children, cut off by her family. Now she had her daughter back. Her son had come home. Her sister was becoming a friend. Even her brother was trying to change. And somewhere she liked to think her grandfather was watching, smiling at what his legacy had become. Baby William stirred and opened his eyes. He looked up at his mother with that ancient knowing gaze. Elena smiled down at him. This is your home, she whispered. This is your family. This is your story. And someday you will tell it to your children. The sun set over the Mitchell Sanctuary, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. Inside the mansion, the portrait of William Mitchell watched over everything, his kind eyes seeming to glow with satisfaction. The secrets were finally free. The truth had finally won. and a new chapter was just beginning. 6 months after the foundation launch, Elena received a phone call that stopped her heart. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Rabbi David Stern from the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington. We have been following your work with great interest, but I am calling today because we found something. Something that belongs to you." Elena sat down slowly, baby William gurgling in her lap. "What did you find?" "A suitcase. Left behind by a refugee family in 1941. It has been in our archives for decades, uncatalogued. When your story broke, one of our researchers made a connection. What family? The handwriting on the tag matches entries in your grandfather's ledger. The name is Hoffman, Eva and Samuel Hoffman and their daughter, Miriam." Elena's breath caught. She knew that name. She had read their story in her grandfather's journal, a young couple with a baby girl. They had stayed at the sanctuary for 3 months in the winter of 1941. The last entry about them said simply, "Departed February 15th. Destination unknown. Pray they arrive safely." No one had ever discovered what happened to them. What is in the suitcase? Documents, photographs, personal items, and a letter, Mrs. Mitchell. A letter addressed to William Mitchell that was never delivered. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. "Can you send it to me? I can do better than that. I am flying to Vermont tomorrow. I want to deliver it personally." Rabbi Stern arrived the next afternoon. He was a small man in his 70s, with kind eyes and gentle hands. He carried a leather suitcase that had been carefully preserved, its surface cracked and worn, but still intact. "Before I give this to you," he said, "I need to tell you what we learned." Elena nodded. Sophie and Tyler stood beside her. Vanessa had driven up from the city. Even Derek was there, standing quietly in the corner of the study. "The Hoffman family made it out," Rabbi Stern said. "They reached California in March of 1941. Samuel found work as a tailor. Eva taught piano. They raised their daughter Miriam in a small house in Los Angeles." Elena felt relief wash over her. They survived. They did more than survive. Miriam Hoffman grew up to become a civil rights attorney. She spent her career fighting for immigrant rights and refugee protections. She died in 2018, but before she passed, she recorded an oral history with our museum. Rabbi Stern pulled out a small device. This is that recording. She talks about her parents, about their escape, about the months they spent in a house in Vermont with a kind man who saved their lives. He pressed play. A woman's voice filled the room. Elderly, but strong. "I was only 2 years old when we stayed at the Mitchell house. I do not remember it myself, but my mother talked about it constantly. She said it was the first time she felt safe since leaving Germany. She said Mr. Mitchell treated them like family, not like refugees. He played with me. He sang songs to me. He told my mother that every child deserved to feel loved no matter where they came from." Elena covered her mouth with her hand. "My mother tried to find him after the war. She wrote letters to the address in Vermont. They all came back undelivered. She never knew what happened to him. She went to her grave wondering if he was alive or dead, if he knew how much he had meant to us." The recording paused. Rabbi Stern looked at Elena. "There is more?" He pressed play again. "If anyone ever finds William Mitchell, my mother wrote a letter for him. She kept it with her for 50 years. She made me promise to deliver it if I ever had the chance. I still have that letter. It is in a suitcase in my closet. The same suitcase we carried out of Germany." The recording ended. Rabbi Stern lifted the suitcase onto the desk. "This is that suitcase, and this is that letter." He opened the suitcase carefully. Inside were faded photographs, yellowed documents, a child's dress, a pair of baby shoes, and an envelope sealed with wax addressed in careful handwriting to William Mitchell, Vermont, USA. Elena's hands trembled as she took the envelope. "Go ahead," Sophie whispered. Elena broke the seal and unfolded the letter. "Dear Mr. Mitchell, I do not know if this letter will ever reach you. I do not know if you are still alive, but I must write it because there are words I have carried in my heart for 50 years that must be spoken. You saved us. When we arrived at your door in November 1940, we had nothing. We had walked for weeks. We had hidden in barns and forests. We had watched friends and family disappear into the darkness that was consuming Europe. We were broken, hopeless, ready to die. And then there was you. You did not ask questions about where we came from or what we had done. You did not demand papers or money or promises. You simply opened your door and said, 'Come in, you are safe here.' I will never forget those words. 'Come in, you are safe here.' For 3 months your house was our home. You fed us, you clothed us, you played with our daughter and made her laugh when we had forgotten how to smile. When we left, you gave us money for our journey. You gave us contacts who could help us. You gave us hope. My husband and I built a life in California. We raised our daughter. We watched her grow into a woman who fights for others the way you fought for us. None of this would exist without you. I have spent 50 years trying to find you, trying to thank you, trying to let you know that your sacrifice was not in vain. I do not know if you will ever read these words, but I am writing them anyway because they must be said. Thank you, William Mitchell. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for seeing our humanity when the world wanted us erased. You are the best man I have ever known. With eternal gratitude and love, Eva Hoffman. Elena could not speak. She held the letter against her chest and wept. Sophie put her arm around her mother. Tyler wiped his eyes. Vanessa was crying openly. Even Derek had tears on his face. Rabbi Stern waited quietly until Elena composed herself. There is one more thing, he said. Miriam Hoffman had a daughter. Her name is Sarah. She lives in New York. When she heard about your foundation, she contacted us immediately. Elena looked up. She wants to meet more than that. Rabbi Stern smiled. She wants to come home. Sarah Hoffman arrived at the Mitchell Sanctuary 3 weeks later. She was a woman in her 50s with dark hair going gray and her grandmother's eyes. She carried a folder of photographs and a lifetime of family stories. Elena met her at the door. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Two women connected by history, by sacrifice, by the courage of a man who had died before either of them was born. Then Sarah stepped forward and embraced Elena like a long-lost sister. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for finding us, for telling this story, for making sure my grandmother's letter finally reached its destination. Elena held her tightly. Thank you for coming, for helping us understand what this place meant. They walked through the house together. Sarah recognized things from her mother's descriptions. The staircase, the study, the room with the yellow wallpaper where her grandmother had slept as a baby. In the garden they stopped before a new addition to the grounds, a memorial wall listing the names of every person known to have found refuge at the Mitchell Sanctuary. Sarah ran her fingers over her family's names. Eva Hoffman, Samuel Hoffman, Miriam Hoffman. My grandmother dreamed of this, she said quietly, of her name being remembered, of her story being told. Now it is. Sarah turned to Elena. What happens next? Elena looked at the memorial at the house at the grounds filled with visitors and researchers and descendants. We keep going. We keep finding names. We keep telling stories. We keep honoring what my grandfather started, and the foundation growing every day. We have established scholarships for refugee students. We are partnering with resettlement organizations. We are teaching young people about this history so they understand that ordinary people can make extraordinary differences. Sarah smiled. Your grandfather would be proud. I hope so. I hope every day that I am worthy of what he started. You are. Sarah squeezed her hand. You are absolutely worthy. That evening, Elena gathered everyone in the study for a special announcement. Sophie and Tyler were there, Vanessa and Derek, Dr. Hayes and her research team, Ruth Adler, who had made another trip from Florida, Hannah Rosen's son from Israel, David Goldstein, Sarah Hoffman. More than 30 people crowded into the room, the same room where William Mitchell had once sat alone writing in his journal about the desperate people who needed his help. Elena stood before the portrait of her grandfather, baby William, in her arms. 1 year ago today, she began, I walked into this house for the first time. I was pregnant alone and my family had just disowned me. I did not know why my grandfather had left me this property. I did not know what secrets were hidden here. I did not know that my life was about to change completely. She looked around the room at the faces gathered there. I found letters in the walls, ledgers hidden in secret compartments, stories of courage and sacrifice that had been buried for 70 years. I found my family's shame and my family's redemption. I found descendants who had spent their lives wondering what happened to the man who saved their grandparents. And I found myself. Baby William cooed and reached for her face. This little boy will grow up knowing his history. He will know that his great-great-grandfather was a hero. He will know that his family almost destroyed that legacy. And he will know that his mother chose truth over comfort, justice over silence, love over fear. She turned to look at the portrait. Grandfather William never knew what happened to most of the people he helped. He never knew that the Hoffman family made it to California. He never knew that Eleanor Roosevelt treasured their friendship. He never knew that his sacrifice rippled outward through generations, touching lives he could never have imagined. But now we know, and we are going to make sure the world knows too. She took a deep breath. Today I am announcing the next phase of the Mitchell Sanctuary Foundation. With funding from our donors and support from the Smithsonian, we are establishing the William Mitchell Center for Refugee Studies. It will be based here in this house, and it will be dedicated to researching the history of private refugee assistance and training the next generation of humanitarian workers. The room erupted in applause. Dr. Hayes stepped forward. Elena, on behalf of the university and our research team, I want to say how honored we are to be part of this project. What you have accomplished in 1 year is remarkable. I did not do it alone. No, but you started it. You had the courage to dig into a past that others wanted to keep buried. You had the strength to stand up to your own family. You had the vision to see what this place could become. Elena felt tears threatening again. Sophie came forward and took her hand. Mom, I want to say something. Go ahead, sweetheart. Sophie turned to face the crowd. A year ago, I was not speaking to my mother. I blamed her for everything that had gone wrong in our family. I believed the lies people told about her. I chose my father over her because it was easier than admitting I was hurting. She squeezed Elena's hand. I was wrong. About all of it. My mother is the strongest, most courageous person I have ever known. She taught me that the truth matters more than comfort. She taught me that family is not about blood, it is about love. She taught me that we are not defined by our parents' mistakes, but by our own choices. Sophie looked at Elena. I am so proud to be your daughter. Elena pulled Sophie into a hug, careful not to squish baby William between them. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, Mom. Tyler stepped forward next. I am not good at speeches, he said awkwardly, but I want to say that I am glad I came home. I am glad I got to be part of this, and I am glad I have the coolest mom on the planet. Everyone laughed. Vanessa came forward, her composure cracking. Elena, I spent most of my life being jealous of you. You had something I did not understand. Integrity, compassion, the ability to see what really matters. I'm sorry it took me so long to recognize it, but I am grateful I finally did. She embraced Elena carefully. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Elena nodded, unable to speak, and then Derek stepped forward. The room went quiet. Everyone knew the history between them. Everyone remembered the threats, and the lawsuits, the years of hostility. Derek stood before his sister, his expression vulnerable in a way Elena had never seen. I was the villain in this story, he said quietly. I know that. I tried to destroy you. I tried to bury the truth. I tried to erase our grandfather's legacy because it made me uncomfortable. He paused. I was wrong. About everything. You showed me that courage is not about protecting yourself. It is about standing up for what is right even when it costs you everything. He looked at Elena. I do not deserve your forgiveness. I do not deserve to be part of this family, but you gave me a chance anyway, and I promise you I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of it. Elena stepped forward and hugged her brother. It was awkward at first. They had not embraced in decades, but then Derek's arms came around her and he held on like a drowning man clinging to a lifeline. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for finally becoming the brother I always wanted. They pulled apart, both wiping their eyes. Ruth Adler stepped forward, her 93-year-old frame supported by her daughter. I want to say something, she said, her voice stronger than her body. The room fell silent. I was 6 years old when I came to this house. I was scared and hungry, and I had lost everything. Your grandfather gave me a home. He gave me hope. He gave me a future. She looked around the room at the other descendants. We are the children of the Mitchell Sanctuary. We carry its legacy in our blood, and now because of Elena, that legacy will never be forgotten. She reached out and touched Elena's face with a papery hand. You have done what your grandfather always dreamed of. You have brought us home. Elena took her hand and kissed it. Thank you for never forgetting him. How could I forget? He saved my life. The gathering continued late into the night. People shared stories, looked at photographs, connected with relatives they had never known existed. The house was filled with laughter and tears and the warmth of community. At midnight, Elena slipped away from the crowd and walked upstairs to the study. Baby William was asleep in her arms. She sat down in her grandfather's chair and looked up at his portrait. The kind eyes, the gentle smile, the wisdom of a man who had understood something essential about human nature. I did it, she whispered. I told your story. I brought them all together. I made sure the world knows what you did. The portrait was silent, of course, but Elena could have sworn the eyes seemed warmer somehow. I named my son after you. He will grow up knowing who you were. He will tell his children, and they will tell their children. Your legacy will never die. Baby William stirred and opened his eyes. He looked at his mother, then at the portrait as if he understood something profound. You are part of this now, Elena told him. Part of something bigger than yourself. Part of a story that started before you were born and will continue long after we are gone. She stood up and carried her son to the window. Below, she could see the grounds of the Mitchell Sanctuary, the restored gardens, the memorial wall, the lights of the museum pavilion, where the permanent exhibition was housed. And beyond that, the darkness of the Vermont forest, the same forest that had hidden desperate refugees 70 years ago. Somewhere out there, Elena thought there are people who need help, people who are fleeing persecution, people who have nowhere to go. We cannot save them all, but we can save some. We can provide sanctuary. We can give hope, just like Grandfather William did. Baby William reached up and touched her face with tiny fingers. Elena smiled down at him. "Are you ready?" she whispered. "Ready to be part of this legacy?" He gurgled and smiled, a toothless, beautiful smile that lit up his whole face. Elena laughed. "I will take that as a yes." She carried him back downstairs, back to the gathering, back to the family she had found and the community she had built. Sophie met her at the bottom of the stairs. "There you are. David Goldstein wants to talk to you. Something about a movie deal." "A movie?" Sophie grinned. "Apparently Hollywood is interested in our story. Can you imagine the Mitchell Sanctuary on the big screen?" Elena shook her head in amazement. "A year ago, I was living in a tiny apartment wondering how I was going to afford diapers. Now Hollywood wants to make a movie about us. Life is weird, Mom." "Yes, yes it is." They walked into the crowded parlor together. Elena was immediately surrounded by people wanting to talk to her, congratulate her, share their own stories. She looked around at the faces. Descendants and historians. Family members and strangers who had become family. All of them connected by the thread of history that William Mitchell had woven 70 years ago. This was his legacy. Not the house, not the money, not the documents hidden in the walls. The people, the connections, the lives saved and the lives transformed. And now it was her legacy too. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Elena stood alone in the study one last time. Baby William was asleep in the nursery upstairs. Sophie and Tyler had gone to bed. The house was quiet, peaceful, filled with the echoes of all the voices that had filled it throughout the day. Elena looked at her grandfather's portrait. "I understand now," she said. "Why you chose me." She had asked that question so many times. Why her? Why not Derek or Vanessa? Why the family disappointment, the pregnant divorcee, the one who had nothing? Now she knew. Because she was the one who would care. The one who would dig. The one who would not give up until the truth was revealed. Because she was in some essential way just like him. An ordinary person willing to do extraordinary things. A woman who chose courage over comfort, truth over lies, love over fear. "You knew," she whispered. "Somehow you knew." The portrait smiled down at her with those kind, wise eyes. "I will not let you down. I will keep this sanctuary alive. I will keep telling your story. I will make sure that every child who comes through these doors understands what you did and why it mattered." She touched the frame of the portrait gently. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for giving me this gift. Thank you for showing me what family really means." She turned and walked to the door. Then she paused and looked back one more time. "Good night, Grandfather. I will see you in the morning." She turned off the light and closed the door. In the darkness, the portrait of William Mitchell kept its silent vigil over the sanctuary he had built. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had shone down on this house for over a century. The same stars that had witnessed refugees stumbling up the driveway with nothing but hope. The same stars that would shine down on generations yet to come. Elena Mitchell had inherited more than a house. She had inherited a mission, a purpose, a reason to believe that one person could make a difference. And she had proven beyond any doubt that the truth will always find its way to the light. Some secrets are buried for shame. Some secrets are buried for protection. But the best secrets, the most important ones, are buried like seeds, waiting for the right person to come along, waiting to grow into something beautiful. William Mitchell planted his seeds 70 years ago. Elena Mitchell brought them to flower, and baby William Mitchell Cole would carry them forward into a future his great-great-grandfather could never have imagined. The Mitchell Sanctuary stands today as a testament to courage, to compassion, to the simple radical act of opening your door to strangers in need, and to the unshakable truth that family is not defined by blood or name or inheritance. Family is defined by love, by sacrifice, by the choice to stand together when the world wants to tear you apart. Elena Mitchell made that choice. Her children made that choice. Even her siblings eventually made that choice. And because of them, hundreds of stories that were almost lost to history will now be remembered forever. This is not just a story about secrets and inheritance. This is a story about what happens when ordinary people refuse to look away from suffering, when they open their doors instead of closing them, when they choose hope over fear. William Mitchell made that choice in 1931. Elena Mitchell made that choice in 2024, and somewhere right now, someone else is making that choice too. That is the true legacy of the Mitchell Sanctuary. Not a house, not a museum, not a foundation, but the simple, powerful belief that every person matters, that every life is worth saving, that every family deserves a home, and that courage once planted never truly dies. It just waits for the right moment to bloom.